Off a day, the Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, and Statistics Research and Planning is back from recess. It is now 1 p.m. on Friday, February 5th, 2021. Notice of this afternoon's virtual hearing was provided via email to senators, stakeholders, and the local media on January 29th for the 5-day notice and February 3rd for the 48-hour notice, thus meeting open government law. The purpose of this virtual public hearing is to receive testimony on several items, the first of which is the executive appointment of Mr. Christopher A. Rosario to serve as a member of the Northern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District Board. The second item is to receive testimony on Bill number 33-36 COR, sponsored by myself, Senator Sabina Flores Perez. It's an act to add a new section 5141N to Chapter 5, Title 5, and to add a new section 1924 to Chapter 19, Title 1, both of Guam Code annotated, relative to agencies submitting a procurement compliance report to the Office of the Public Accountability. The last item on this agenda is Bill number 35-36 COR, sponsored by Senator Joe S. San Augustine, an act to amend Section 5217, a sub-article B, Article 3, Chapter 5, Division 1, Title 5, Guam Code annotated, and to amend Section 3110.1 of Chapter 3, Division 4, Title 2, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations, relative to procurement from not-for-profit corporations. So I'd like to acknowledge my colleague who has joined me today, Senator Tello Taitigui. Thank you so much. And so now to begin our agenda, the first item is to hear testimony regarding the executive appointment of Mr. Christopher A. Rosario to serve as a member of the Northern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District Board. And just to give an idea, the power of this board, what the powers they have is to provide for and encourage surveys, investigations, and research relating to soil and water conservation, and to publish and disseminate information concerning such subjects, to provide for and encourage demonstrations relative to the control and prevention of erosion and the conservation of soil and water resources, and to carry out preventive control measures on publicly owned land within the district with the consent of the land occupier, to cooperate or enter into agreements with and to furnish aid to any agency or land occupier within a district insofar as it is feasible to do so, to review conservation plans prepared by farmland owners and land occupiers, and the list goes on. So there is quite a bit of responsibilities that this board is required to do. And so at this time, I would like to open the floor to those who have come to testify on behalf of the nominee. So I would like to recognize former Senator Hope Cristobal for her testimony.
Sidusmasi, Senator. Let me just, sorry, I'm going to have, trying to pull up my testimony. Okay. Buenas tardes, Senadora Perez and members of the Legislative Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement and Statistics, Research and Planning. My name is Hope Alvarez Cristobal. I am the chairperson of the Northern Soil Water Conservation District Board and one of 4 remaining directors elected August 2019 for a 3-year tenure on the board. Having committed myself to the work of soil and water conservation, I have served on this board for many years, and I am pleased to inform this legislative body that soil and water conservation is one of the most gratifying work for me as a recent farmer. The board is one such government board where we really do not count on the $50 stipend per month that we get, but rather we count our blessings that we work with knowledgeable professionals at the University of Guam and specifically the College of Natural and Applied Sciences, and our advisor, Mr. Roland Joseph Kirigua, who himself was our previous chairman for quite a few years until he stepped down in 2019 after being popularly elected by farmers, ranchers, land occupiers who farm and ranch. But first, Senator, I would like to publicly congratulate you Senator Perez, for your re-election to the 36th Guam legislature. Your first tenure as senator in the last legislature was obviously a successful one. We are very pleased with the work that you are doing, and we want to wish you another successful term as our senator and legislative chairwoman of this committee that has oversight of our board and the work we do. Thank you, and God bless you and your work. I am here to testify in favor of the confirmation of Mr. Christopher Ada Rosario, whom I met last year while going out in the field to observe his beehives in preparation for our usual annual 2020 Educator Symposium that did not materialize due to COVID-19 restrictions that the board was not equipped at the time to handle, utilizing virtual media for such a large group of educators at the time. With great effort this year, we may just be able to do it, Senator. So you yourself has been one of our presenters at our Educator Symposium, and I thank you for all your work that is in line with soil and water conservation. Mr. Rosario resides in Barrigada within the board's jurisdiction. He is a beekeeper of some 40 beehives. He is a biosecurity agent and understands the connection between saving our bees, keeping them healthy, and soil and water conservation. He brings knowledge and expertise to the board and will be able to assist the board with complexities in carrying out our mandates found in 5 GCA Chapter 71. I have just been able to review his resume that he was able to send up to the governor, and I'm sure that your committee would be happy to hear that he really has built an expertise on bees, which was our theme for the symposium. However, those beehives are located in Jigo, from Jigo to Maleso. So he covers the entire island with his work in beehive keeping, but more importantly, in biosecurity. His work with invasive species is exceptional, and I'm very gratified to hear that he also has worked on CRBs, which is one of the biggest pests that this island is facing. But I think a hobby that he had of beekeeping became part of his life now. It has taken over. I know he is working on a master's degree at the University of Guam, and so he inspires his contemporaries. And as I get older and older and on this board, I see him as a potential leader in this island, and I highly recommend his confirmation. Thank you so much, Senator. This completes my very short testimony. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Senator Hope, and appreciate your testimony, and thank you for the congratulations as well. So I would like to also recognize my colleague, Senator Tony Ada, who has joined me here today. Thank you so much, Senator Ada.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So next on the list, I believe we have Chairman Mike Uggan, who is providing testimony on behalf of the nominee. You're recognized, Mr. Uggan.
Good afternoon. Buenas and half a day, Chairwoman Sabina Flores Perez and members of the committee. A special good afternoon to my prima si Telo Taidagui, Senator Taidagui. I know she walked in. So anyways, my name is Mike Uggan. I'm the board chair for the Southern Guam Soil Water Conservation District, as well as the president for the Farmers Co-op Association of Guam. I would like to provide testimony in support of Christopher Rosario for the Northern District Board, Conservation Board. So the Southern Guam Soil Water Conservation District wholeheartedly supports the executive appointment of Mr. Christopher Ada Rosario to serve in the Northern District Conservation. The Southern District believes that Mr. Rosario, in his personal and professional capacity, will be an asset to the Guam Soil and Water Conservation Districts and will contribute to the organization's mission as well as the vision for the future. The Southern District fully recognizes all of Rosario's contributions and work in conservation and agricultural industry. The Southern District has collaborated with Mr. Rosario on a number of education and outreach efforts focused on honeybee pollination, protection, and production. Mr. Rosario is always willing to offer his expertise and help in the efforts to protect Guam soil and water. Thank you. On a side note, I just want to say that Mr. Rosario came out to my farm, and with a lack of staff, he asked me and my board manager, Erica Penglin, to step in and help him eradicate banded hornet nests in one of my farmhouses. And we did a night ops, and it was very successful. And that's when I really got to talk with him, and I was really happy to get to know him. And I could see in his heart that he really he's really into this conservation. So I just wanted to say that on the side for personal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Egan. So next on the list, we do have Roland Quirigua, who's no stranger in regards to conservation. So welcome, Roland. You have the floor. Where did he go? So Roland, yeah, we lost the video, and you're muted as well. So we're not sure if you're actually providing testimony at this time. So maybe give you a little moment.
Hold
There
on,
you are.
lost video? Oh no, I got notes, and I'm sorry, but I'm doing this off the phone on the road.
Okay,
So you can't see me if I'm doing this?
You were on for a second, but then now we lost your video again. So are you driving at the moment?
Yes, I am. I pulled over in the side of the road because I wanted to make sure that I caught you and provide a testimony.
Okay, we appreciate that you are. Oh, there. Okay, wherever you are, maybe you could park right there because we could see you now.
Okay, I'm parked. I got my notes
Okay,
the phone. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna wing it. Hafa-Day Senator Perez and esteemed senators, my name is Roland Quirigua, and I would like to offer my support for the confirmation of Mr. Christopher Rosario to the Northern Soil and Water Conservation District. I currently serve as a outreach specialist for the University of Guam Cooperative Extension and Outreach, and I am a former member of the Northern Soil and Water Conservation District, serving 9 years, 7 of those as chairman. I currently am serving as the advisor to the Northern District, and I also am serving at the national level to the National Association of Conservation District to their invasive species resource policy group. I would like to attest to the qualifications of Mr. Rosario, and this is from experience in working with him in a number of different capacities. I honestly believe that the knowledge and the experience that Mr. Rosario brings with his science background and experience in bees will add a new facet to the soil and water districts. And with this, I do look forward to working with Mr. Rosario in growing the health of our ecosystem, in preserving our natural resources for the island of Guam. Also, there are a lot of opportunities, and with his background, I see Mr. Rosario serving the soil and water districts at the regional and national level. I would also like to say that personally, I believe that there is no justification whatsoever for Mr. Rosario's confirmation to be rejected. I will say that I have witnessed but should the committee feel that rejection is warranted, for examples like when I have seen Mr. Rosario where he had to burn a tree in order to eradicate a Vespa wasp for the sake of a homeowner and their family. I would recommend that if you do choose to go that route, that you sentence Mr. Rosario to no less than 1 year community service, serving as a district board member for the Northern Soil and Water Conservation District. Ankle monitor optional. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kirigua. Always very colorful testimony. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time. All right, so I'd like to now recognize the nominee, Christopher Rosario, and offer him the floor to provide his testimony at this time. So if you can unmute yourself, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you all for the testimony of support. First and foremost, again, I'd like to thank you all for even giving me the opportunity to be part of something big and something to help the community with, especially the farmers. I guess for the most part, the reason I had accepted this nominee is so that I could be able to bridge the gaps between farmers and local beekeepers, who I'm the president of the Guam Beekeepers Association. So it would help the collaboration efforts between farmers, local beekeepers, and pretty much the overall community to help preserve our ecosystem. That's kind of about it. The biggest thing for me too as well is, people tell me I'm still young and I'm still trying to figure out how things work, whether it's being on a board or being on a committee. In high school, I've never joined any clubs or anything. So I want to kind of take this opportunity to kind of build that leadership skill that I feel personally that I'm lacking. And so I feel that serving on the board can help me, even just being part of the board, or making decisions, taking on votes, or again, just the interaction between board members and being able to make a decision as a group is what I want to grow for myself. And yes, that's kind of it for my statement, unless you have any questions for me.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Just wanted to give a opportunity for Katrina Regis if she wanted to provide any type of support. I apologize if I missed your. Sorry, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman Sabina Perez and Legislative Committee members. I am Katrina Regis with the Northern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District and the Farmers Cooperative Association of Guam Board Secretary Treasurer. I'm here today to support the executive appointment of Mr. Chris Rosario to the Northern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District Board. Chris exemplifies the virtue of good citizenship by helping a farmer remove a banded hornet colony from a farm in Malolo a couple of weeks ago. This selfless act of service enriched the lives of the farmer, his family, and neighbors by eliminating danger and destruction caused by this species. His service shows ongoing initiative, leadership, and dedication which continued after work hours. And lastly, I see his devotion to sustain selfless voluntary service to humanity. I recommend his appointment to the Northern Board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Regis, for that testimony. I believe we have Angie Mendiolas, who's from the Southern Soil and Water Conservation District. I think she's trying to get on to provide some sort of a testimony, but I guess in the meantime, while we're waiting, we can ask questions of the nominee. So first of all, Chris, thank you for accepting the nomination. I know, from all the endorsements here today, it's very strong and positive, and from all different angles, from, board members from the UOG. I think that shows that there's a, good support for your acceptance and, teamwork. And I think you do provide a additional expertise, which is very important and not so common here in Guam, which is the beekeeping aspect. And, people overlook the importance of bees, obviously, because they're very small creatures, but they play such a huge role in regards to production of our foods. So yeah, thank you for accepting the nomination. I think this is a good addition to the group, and I did talk with you yesterday. So just for the public's sake, we can go over some of those questions. So one of the questions that's very important is, meeting quorum. So I think, are you committed to joining these meetings? And I know some of these meetings can last, hours, depending on how much projects, the board is dealing with. And I've sat in on the Southern Soil and Water Conservation District meetings. I believe that lasted 2 hours or more because they had just have so much going on, right? And I just want to, I guess, ask the question: are you committed to the time in going to these meetings, and also not just going to the meetings, but preparing for the meetings, and then any follow-up actions that come after that?
Yes, I am committed to attend the meetings and also prepare any materials and any presentations for these meetings.
Okay, that's very important. Thank you for that answer. I want to recognize Speaker Teresa Lahi, who's joined me here today. Thank you so much, Speaker. And I hope I didn't miss any other senators. Okay, so all right, and the other thing is conflict of interest. I know that this always comes up, and so I think what's important is, are you, do you have any conflict of interest at this moment?
I have no conflict of interest or any awareness of how I would be in a position where I would end up getting a conflict of interest. So, and even if there is a point where I'm always going to end up questioning whether what I'm doing is whether a conflict of interest or if it's legal or illegal. But again, I guess it's all about kind of making sure that it does not pass that point. So no conflict of interest whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you for that response, Chris. I believe we have Angie Mendiola. Would you like to provide testimony? I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't feeling good. I just turned on the Zoom. But anyway, I didn't hear the other people's testimony. But yes, I'm really 100% in favor for confirmation for Chris. Literally, he's the honey of Guam, our honey. And I know he's very conscious about the importance of protecting our environment. And I have used him. We have invited him to do little workshop for the directors in the past. He's very knowledgeable of the importance of protecting our natural resources and our environment. So I'm wholeheartedly recommending confirmation for Chris. I know he'll be a great asset with the Northern, and we work closely with the Northern District for Guam. So, and then he, being a director, he would also be member of the Guam Association of Conservation Districts. So we'll be working together closely, and he'll bring a lot of good stuff to the table. And I highly recommend confirmation for Chris Rosario. Thank you, Senator, and thank you for your constant support for our districts. I know how you are very focused and making sure that we're doing all we can to protect our natural resources and our environment for the future generation. And I wish you luck in this the new legislature, your second year. Congratulations! And again, I'm wholeheartedly for confirmation of Chris. He'll make a great asset for our districts. Thank you, Senator, for allowing me. I'm not feeling well, but I'm trying to get well so I can be with my sister's funeral tomorrow. So, yes, thank you so much for allowing me
Yeah, thank
to
you so much.
testify.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Angie, and my condolences to you and your
Thank
family.
you.
Okay, so I don't have any further questions. I do want to open up the floor to my colleagues if they have any questions for the nominee, Chris Rosario. I'd like to recognize Speaker Terlahi at this time.
No questions, Madam Chair, but just congratulations to Chris and good luck on this work. And I know you have a good set of people working with you. So wishing you the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Taitigui?
Sujus Masi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And yes, you know, you beat me to the punchline, Primo Mike. I was going to say a shout out to you first, but good to see you and thank you. And thank you everyone here for testifying. Hope Cristóbal, Senator Cristóbal, yes, you're absolutely right about the chairwoman. And I too am very happy that she made it into, because she's very thorough, especially when it comes to venting out individuals, you know, taking positions on the board, which is very important. The role that you're going to play, Christopher, is very, very important. There's a lot of people who rely on you. And by the way, were you one of the gentlemen that came to my house in Windward Hills to help Paul Packbeard take the beach
Yes.
down? Was that you?
Yes, I was there.
I
Yep.
thought so.
Mhm.
I thought so. So it's glad to know. I mean, you had me at graduate of GW. You already had me at that, right? You know, if you're a graduate of GW, it's all good. But yes, I remember, because I truly believe in the cause. The beekeepers, Madam Chair, I had a nest of bees that were embedded in between two ply boards on a container that you literally had to break to get the bees were going into this hole. It was massive. I mean, the whole side of a 40-foot container was a cone, bee cone, and the honey was massive in that. It was just amazing. So, I mean, if anyone is out there listening, if you have that, don't kill the bees, you know, at all. You know, call these guys, the Beekeepers Association, and they will come out and remove these bees for you safely and protect it. So I really appreciate, Christopher, your work that you're doing with the Bee Association, because I truly believe in protecting the bees as well. So, and thank you again for your help coming to the house, taking the bees down. I wish you the very best. You've got a lot of great people who've been doing this for quite some time. You know, I'm a family from farmers. You know, my roots come from many farmers, like my primo Mike from Mineral Hunt, and of course Hope. So yes, you are the next generation. Yes, you are young. Learn as much as you can before these guys decide to go retire. You know, and you'll be the next one to take over. I wish you the very best, Christopher, and thank you so much for stepping up to the plate to serve the people of Guam. Sujus Masi. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Senator. So I think if there's no other senators that would like to provide any questions or comments, I think we can consider this nomination duly heard. And I just want to thank you again, Chris, for accepting this nomination. And thank you to all that have come here today to take time and provide some endorsements, very strong endorsements for this nominee. So to Duas Masi, and you know, have a good day. You feel free to stay on, but yeah, you feel free to leave too as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. Best of luck. So next item on the agenda is to hear public testimony regarding bill number 33-36 COR. A bill sponsored by myself, Senator Sabina Flores Perez, is an act to add a new section 5141N to chapter 5, title 5, and to add a new section 1924 to chapter 19, title 1, both of Guam Code annotated, relative to the agency submitting a procurement compliance report to the Office of Public Accountability. And just to give you some opening remarks, so what Bill 33-36 would do, it would require agencies to submit a compliance report to the Office of Public Accountability in an effort to ensure adequate staffing of qualified professionals handling procurement at the agency level, and to help streamline Government of Guam operations, improve efficiency, and ensure accountability and transparency in the expenditure of government funds. Currently, there is no monitoring agency to ensure procurement training compliance. Bill 33-36 seeks to address this by mandating the submission of the report to the Office of the Public Accountability, summarizing procurement training compliance of employees responsible for procurement. The bill follows a report by OPA, which identified a need for more GovGuam employees to become proficient in procurement laws and practices in order to reduce the number of protests and appeals. Ensuring that personnel handling procurements are properly trained, Bill 33-36 makes certain that the people of Guam will receive much needed goods, services, construction projects in a timely and efficient manner. With Bill 33-36, agencies will not only comply with the law in obtaining procurement training for employees responsible for purchasing, but that they must also maintain that compliance. Bill 33-36 will enable larger, more complex contracts to be delivered by qualified and experienced procurement professionals. I would like to thank Public Auditor BJ Cruz for his willingness to serve as a monitoring agency on top of the office's other duties. So I'm open to the dialogue, and as of now, we are going to receive testimonies. I believe we have Attorney Brown here today. We also received written testimony from the public auditor. We do have somebody from the public auditor's office is also willing to present their testimony. So Attorney Brown, did you want to present testimony regarding this?
I'd like to congratulate you for taking this up, and the public auditor for bringing forward such a bill. Procurement training is an essential item that we don't have enough of. It came about actually from an article I wrote on that in Guam Business Magazine 10 years ago, maybe. I had begun teaching procurement training at GCC just because I thought it needed to be done. And when that article came to BJ's attention, he wrote the law, and it's very well designed. It needs to be implemented. It is being implemented, I have to say. One of the nice things about having this, this is you'll find some of the weak spots in it when the reports are made. But the other nice thing to know about it, BJ has some statistics that he was giving me about how effective this training is becoming. In the years before people started taking the classes because they had to, we were getting procurement appeals to OPA at the rate of 20 to 30 a year. Since the classes have been more generously attended, in fact, full classes we've had for the last couple of years, it's dropped down to about 8 to 10 procurement appeals a year. So people are learning how to do it better. And that's what we want to do, but we need to constantly train because people roll over, they change jobs and all that stuff as we do. So it's an ongoing thing, and you need ongoing monitoring of it. And this will be a very valuable addition to the process.
All right. Thank you so much for that your support and for your testimony. So the next person on the list is Jarek Hernandez from the Office of Public Accountability. Thank you, Jarek, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you have a lot of reports to do, so I appreciate your time spending the time here. So you have the floor when you're ready.
Thank you so much, Senator Perez, and we also like to thank you also for your continuous support of the office, and in particular the procurement, any procurement recommendations we have. You've been very supportive of us in that endeavor. We did already submit a written testimony, but I will just read it for the record. Dear Senator Perez, the Office of Public Accountability supports Bill 33-36. We appreciate the proactive approach to addressing our concerns. In our recent audit issued in December 2020, OPA report number 20-009, Government of Guam Procurement Training and Certification Program Follow-up Audit. This report is also available on our website at www.opaguam.org. The Guam Procurement Law prohibits the participation of government personnel have not obtained the mandated procurement training and certification, it is necessary to produce employees who are knowledgeable in procurement to effectively and efficiently perform their agency procurement functions. In OPA report number 20-009, we found that agencies are continuing to work on complying with the procurement training and certification requirements. However, other than OPA's compliance audits, there is no entity monitoring agency compliance with the procurement training. The Guam Community College is only mandated to establish and administer the program. While they maintain a database of individuals who have completed the program training modules, they're not solely responsible for determining program compliance. Until such time an entity is established to determine program compliance, OPA is willing to assist with monitoring compliance by having the agency submit a report annually to OPA 30 days after the end of each fiscal year, summarizing its employees, who are those who are responsible with procurement, compliance with the procurement training in line with Bill 33-36. We do have some suggestions, which we suggest that the procurement training compliance report that will be mandated by the agency should have a minimum of the list of the employees by name, their job titles, and each procurement training module they've completed and the date of completion. In addition, we also suggest a clarification to the title of the bill to include training between procurement and compliance to read relative to agencies submitting a procurement training compliance report to the Office of Public Accountability. This should also be reflected on line 11 on page 1 and lines 2 to 3, 9 and 11 on page 2 to say procurement training compliance report, just to add emphasis that it's a procurement training compliance and not just procurement in general. And other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me regarding the recommendation.
All right, thank you so much, Derek. We appreciate you taking the time. And no, I think it's pretty clear. So we'll definitely make those changes to the bill in the committee report. We did reach out to General Service Agency, Chief Procurement Officer Claudia Faggi, for also their input regarding this bill. And we will continue to seek their input as well. So I don't have any questions to the panel, but thank you so much for being here and providing testimony. But I would like to offer the floor to my colleagues that are here today. So Speaker Therese, if you have any questions for the panel.
Thank you. If I could just ask, yes, so I know we received the OPA's report and that's very helpful, but you know, this training of directors, when the directors change, in my view, quite often. I mean, is that necessary that the directors are also trained? Are they considered, procurement personnel, purchasing personnel, or is it, should we be? I know they try to do line staff as well. I mean, what do you call it? Classified staff as well, but I don't know. What is your opinion on getting the directors certified? Are they also signing off and they need to be trained in all 4 modules?
So I would like to defer to either professor or the public auditor, but I would say yes, but I would like to hear their responses too. So maybe Attorney Brown?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question, Speaker, because it's vital. Good procurement starts at the top. Because the people down below, and I get it from students all the time, don't know what they're doing. And when they do learn, they get squelched by the people above who don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So I think besides which the head of the agency, for those agencies that have procurement authority, their name is on it.
Yeah.
I mean, they deal with the protests. I mean, they're the ones behind the 8 ball. If they don't know what they're doing, they're going to make it worse. And they don't set a very good example for those below them. So I've seen a number of directors come through the program. The absence of the others is noticeable too. But I've never had anybody tell me it was a waste of time.
Thank you. Jarek, did you want to provide any additional support or information?
Well, I agree with Attorney Brown's assessment, and I just wanted to add that sometimes a lot of these are, politically appointed directors, and oftentimes they come from the private sector, and often they kind of just don't know Guam procurement, and they can oftentimes, sort of think they can just do whatever, but in line, when they get to the actual Guam procurement law, they can't just do whatever. And so I think it's very important that they do get the training in all 4 modules, especially like Attorney Brown had pointed out that they do oversee the whole agency and all the purchasing. And that's actually one of the reasons why we did the follow-up audit. We knew there was a change in administration. And so the public auditor felt like he wanted to see if there is at least there's some that the new administration and the newly appointed cabinet members are actually trying to get the training. And that's why we did the follow-up audit, and we released that last year.
All right. So if you could just remind us, what is the reason then if only 13 directors out of the 50 line agencies obtain Module 1 certification and only 1 obtaining certification in all 4 modules? So is the procurement being done by someone else in these cases, or is that allowed by law that with only 1 module they sign off on the procurement? Or I don't see any penalty, I guess. Or I thought that by requiring the training, we were saying you can't sign off unless you've been trained. But is that not the case? I don't know.
So for the line agencies in particular, this sort of saving grace, and we noted in the report that they technically all still go through GSA, and at least the CPO herself has taken, and most of the current staff, or well, I wouldn't say most because a lot of them have left, but what the key members that do sign off, particularly the CPO, has taken all 4 modules. With regards to the autonomous agencies that do handle their own procurement, the saving grace again is that if the head is not fully certified, they have a deputy or chief procurement officer in their agency that has taken all 4 modules. So there is some form of sort of safety net for those that haven't taken it yet.
All right. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker Talahi. Yeah, I just also want to reiterate that this is all about building capacity too as well. And it would help streamline the procurement operations, because what we're hearing from many businesses out there is they go through the agency and then they think they got a deal, and then later on they find out they have to go through GSA and go through the whole process all over again. And so, yeah, by following up on this, it hopefully would promote more trained professionals within our government agencies so that it could be handled quicker. The other thing is the RFP process. So that's supposed to be handled by the agency. So that's something to be questioned is, who's handling these RFPs at the agency level if they don't have the procurement training there. And it takes the director for sure, but they need a panel of people to vote on this. So, I mean, unless the chief procurement officer is handling all of the RFPs from all the line agencies, and that, again, creates that bottleneck, which is why procurement is so, it's delayed potentially because it's going to one agency when in fact could be the load could be spread perhaps better around the agencies. But yeah, so I'm really happy to see that the public auditor is willing to kind of monitor this, and maybe we can increase the capacity within our line agencies and government overall. But thank you for those good questions. All right, so are there any senators that would like to provide any questions or comments at this time? Okay, well, I think that concludes the hearing for Bill 33-36. We will continue to receive testimony till February 11th, 4 p.m. For this bill and anything that was heard today. So thank you so much, Jarek, and thank you, Attorney Brown, for your time. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda, and this is also another procurement bill. It's Bill 35-36 COR. It is sponsored by Senator Joe S. San Augustine. It's an act to amend Section 5217 of Subarticle B, Article 3, Chapter 5, Division 1, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, and to amend Section 3110.1 of Chapter 3, Division 4, Title 2, Guam Administrative Rules and Regulations relative to procurement from not-for-profit corporations. And I'd like to welcome the sponsor, Senator Joe San Augustine, for joining us. And you came just right in time for your introduction of this bill. So you have the floor, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Alpha Day to all. Thank you for hosting this public hearing on Bill 3536 COR. This legislation will assist the disabled, sheltered, and economically challenged individuals in our community. It will also update the terminology used in Public Law 18-15, which is now considered politically incorrect. The main purpose of Bill 3536 is to ensure that the vulnerable individuals in our community is offered on-the-job experience, which allow for such individuals to attain future employment opportunities through the skills that they will learn through pre-apprenticeship programs. Nonprofit corporations need our help to push through with such legislation to ensure that we provide equal opportunities for all island residents, no matter their abilities, qualities, and socio-economic status. The government of Guam also benefits as we can provide training to individuals which may help alleviate the burden caused by our limited resources. This legislation is no harm to our island, as it will lift our island values and tight-knit community, ensuring that every resident of Guam is provided equal opportunity for the betterment of their quality of life. Again, thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill and for the opportunity to hear the voices of our stakeholders, who I appreciate for coming today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Senator San Augustine. I think now we're going to invite those that have come to testify regarding Bill 35-36. So I would like to open the floor to Attorney Brown for his testimony.
Thank you, Senator, and all the senators there, Speaker. This bill is ripe for change. I started working on getting it changed years ago. It's been submitted in several large reform bills, and it's never made it to the floor. So it's ripe for change, primarily because it gave false impressions in the first place. It was never good enough, because I heard from an awful lot of agencies over the years saying, you know, what's with this nonprofit stuff? They come to us thinking that we're a training center, that because they don't have staff, but they want the contract so that they can put them on and train them. But the procurement, this is a procurement contract in the procurement law. This is a method of source selection, which means it's how you procure. And it's one of a list of them in Article 3 that describes the approved available methods of source selection. I think it starts the confusion when it says that the contract can be awarded without competition. So from what I'm told by other agencies, and they run the gamut, they'll award a contract to somebody, and then the nonprofit will come in and say, "Hey, we're entitled to that because we don't have to compete for it." That phrase "without competition" in the context of Article 3 has a special meaning, because there are various methods of source selection. Some of them don't require competition. Sole source doesn't require competition. Others do. And so that without competition is not a broad thing. I don't have to do anything to get this award because it's without any competition. It just signifies, it puts it in the category of those that do require it, IFBs, RFPs, and those that don't, sole source, emergency procurement, those other methods of procuring. And so I'm trying to make the point, and I've prepared language and suggest language be inserted that emphasizes that you don't get a contract without competition unless you are both responsible and responsive to what the solicitation is. Because people show up and say, I'm a nonprofit and I want the contract. Do you have what you need? No, I don't. Can you get it? We're working on it. Well, you're not responsive if that's the way it is, and you're not responsible either. And so you're not entitled to this. And I think it's as important to prepare people's expectations in the nonprofit world as to what they can do with this as it is for us to enforce it properly. I think it has false promises by the way it's written. So I would like to see that extended. I think that just speaking to the bill in place, I like the idea of individuals receiving training and apprenticeship taking advantage of this. It fits right into the whole scheme of things. But again, we need to make it clear what's going on here. This is not a giveaway. This is not a training program. This is not a grant facility. This is an agency of the government needing a service or a supply. They're not going to want stuff that's not worthy, that it's not capable of it. It's got to meet the specifications. And the nonprofit as a contractor is just like any other contractor. They have a job to do and they need to fill it. So they need to learn. I'm glad that there are more people taking an interest in this nonprofit provision because it tells me that there's room to get it utilized better. But I'm not going to read you my my comments. You have them there. They get a little bit into the weeds. But simply inserting the language that's there, I have some other language that I propose in my written comments. One, apart from that nonprofit law, I really want to voice a strong objection because I see it too frequently and some people just aren't getting it. You cannot amend regulations, senators. You cannot repeal regulations, senators. You can write law. When you write law, it takes precedence over regulations. So Section 3 of this bill, which talks about making changes in regulations, is ultra virus. You're violating the separation of powers. So please just ignore that. If you want that language, put it in the law. It will be enforceable as a law immediately. You don't even have to wait for regulations to be promulgated. So I was a little bit shocked to see that in there. I thought we'd sorted that out. Other than that, if you'll just take a look at page 3 and 4 of my testimony, I've suggested some language that will do two things. The main thing, it will kind of frame the expectations of a nonprofit who wants to do this. And secondly, it'll make it clear to everybody else that this really is part of the procurement law. This is not some extra giveaway by the government, right? And I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. If you can stay for questions later, I just want to give time for the others to provide their testimony. Thank you. All right, so next on the list, we have Greg Calvo. So I'd like to recognize you, offer you the floor for your testimony.
Havade, Senator. My name is Greg Calvo, and I'm speaking on behalf of Pacific Human Resource Services. Our General Manager, Jeff Vitskovitsky, has a statement. I'd like to just read it, if I may. Dear Chairwoman Sabina Perez, Sponsor, Senator Joe T. Sanageson, members of the legislature, and the public attending this hearing. Pacific Human Resource Services is a human resource company engaged in the 4 core services of HR consulting, staffing, recruiting, drug and alcohol-free workplace programs, and training. We're in the business of workforce development for everyone here in Guam. For the past 4 years, PHRS has served individuals with disabilities with approved individualized plan for employment, or IPE, who are consumers of the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, DVR, the Department of Integrated Services for Individuals with Disabilities, DISIT, and PHRS is an approved vendor of the DVR Community Rehabilitation Provider, or CRP program, in which referred disabled persons are screened for training and eventual placement in a participating employer workplace under supported employment. These private enterprise businesses, as well as nonprofit corporations, provide the training and work experience for these individuals who, for the most part, have not entered the workplace due to barriers they encounter because of the developmental, physical, mental, emotional, and behavioral challenges they have. The U.S. Rehabilitation Act of 1973, as amended, cites the findings of Congress that millions of Americans have one or more disabilities, constituting one of the most disadvantaged groups in society. Further, Section 2 of the Rehab Act states that disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to live independently, enjoy self-determination, make choices, contribute to society, pursue meaningful careers, and enjoy full inclusion and integration in the economic, political, social, cultural, and educational stream of American society. On our island of Guam, the U.S. Census in 2010 enumerates over 23,000 persons who stated that they have one or more disabilities, making Guam the highest rate of disability, followed by West Virginia at 18%. The results of the 2020 U.S. Census should be released soon with expected similar information. Federal funds appropriated annually by Congress is received by Government of Guam for implementation of the Rehab Act by the Department of Integrated Services for Individuals with Disabilities under its Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. As eligible consumers are processed, VR counselors, in conjunction with these consumers, work on the individualized plan for employment. Afterwards, a CRP vendor is assigned. The vendor or service provider then carries out the IPE for training and work experience over a period of 3 to 6 or even 9 months if needed. The goal is eventual job placement. While PHR specifically continually seeks interested companies, businesses, and nonprofit organizations for the training and workplace placements of these assigned consumers, it requires a lot of interaction, presentation for these companies to sign on as recruited CRP employers. DVR and other CRP vendors are always seeking opportunities to employ disabled individuals, giving them an opportunity to work themselves into the mainstream of our economic and community life. In conclusion, any encouragement or incentive offered or approved to invite private sector companies and not-for-profit corporations to offer their workplaces and open at least entry-level jobs to individuals with disabilities should be commended, supported, as it is more than honorable, it is also very noble. Make no question about it, PHRS is a public-spirited company, and as a CPR vendor, we are without hesitation advocates for our friends who also have special challenges. We support the intentions of Bill number 35-36, Juice Mossy, Madam Chair and Senators, signed Jeffrey Viskovitsky, General Manager, PHRS. Juice Mossy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Calvo, for your testimony and for taking the time today. So next on the list to provide testimony I have is Carlos Camacho.
I'm good. Thank you, Senator Perez, Senators, Senator Sanageson. My name is Carlos Camacho. Today, I'm gonna speak on behalf of my nonprofit organization, which is a workforce training facilitator. We are a subcontract with Department of Labor for over 4 years. under the WIOA program, Workforce Innovative Opportunity Act. We provide up to a 6 months training program in regards to the construction and training trade. First of all, I would like to thank the senators here who passed the phase 1 of the apprenticeship program called the pre-apprentice program. And today I just learned something that Attorney John Brown just said, and I wish we would have learned that language on the last bill you guys did on the pre-apprentice, because I'm still waiting for the rules and regs to that get adopted, because we have not yet implemented that pre-apprentice program yet. It's already since last quarter of last year. So, and that's under Department of Labor. So I wish we would have incorporated that in that language as he stated for this particular bill, so we don't have to wait for that rules and regs to be done for the pre-apprentice one. But anyways, I just wanted to say I appreciate the opportunity to expand this workforce opportunity that was focused from Public Law 18-15 to the disabled. At that time, in the 18th legislature was defined as handicap, but now politically correct called disabled, and to the sheltered definition. Now expanding it to the potential pre-apprentice demographics. If you recall in Public Law 35-103, the demographics that were targeted for the pre-apprentice program were focused on 5 different categories. 1, the unemployed. During the pandemic, there was over 20,000 unemployed individuals, and due to the loss of the economic jobs to the pandemic. Number 2, in that same bill, the Senator Shinoxi and you folks passed last round, they included the able bodies and the TANF participants, which is the food stamp recipients. Under new federal law, effective April of 2020, these individuals must provide 20 hours a week of on-the-job training of any sort of training. And in this case, when you guys passed 35-103, you guys expanded other than construction, all apprentice trade. So in order to maintain their food stamp or welfare program, they must go into a 20-hour training program. So I'm very happy that now this is going to be applied now to government assets so that these individuals can use this as one of the on-the-job training program if any of these particular agencies need these types of services. 3, the unemployed veterans that was defined, and 4, the work credit program that was defined for the prison industries. Again, I want to say qualified prison industries presently since the 15th legislature that was allowed to go out to our streets at that time, clean the parks and the ponding basin. What you guys did in 35-103, it's allowed them now to have some type of technical skills to the construction or any other apprentice trade. And these are the several sources of demographics that now can also join their fellow counterparts, the disabled and the sheltered individuals, to have these type of program. If you look at 105-103, it also made sure that it goes through an EPTL training provider. PHRS is an EPTL training provider, as Mr. Calvo just described. For the last many years, they've been providing that through DICIT, and I'm glad DICIT is here. I am one of the recipients of DICIT's disabled applicants. They work in some of my projects in the construction trade. So I know the program works, and I know when this was being entertained to see how this could be used to government resources, especially now with the limited financial resources. Here's one way you can cross-layer on-the-job training. And like Greg just defined, we can go up to 9 months. We can go up to 9 months where these guys will get paid under our other federal dollars that we used under WIOA or under DICIT's resources that Greg oversees with DICIT. And these guys will have this opportunity if the pre-apprentice program is finally adopted and the rules and regs is finally adopted by this 36th legislature. What that means is basically that you give these individuals a training program. I know Mr. Brown don't like to use the word training, but This will give these guys real and what we do in GCC, we call it the living lab, the real learn living lab. They go into these assets, let it be Parks and Rec, for example, maybe clean the parks, fix the pavilions, fix those concrete barbecue pits. Those are still construction trade. They'll learn something. And when they do that, they'll get that learning trade. And when they finally choose their apprentice discipline, they'll be employable in the construction market, as we know is a demand. Or if they go into one of DOE's assets to fix that plumbing or to fix that canopy, as you keep hearing parent teachers to do when they do and raise funds. Why couldn't we become creative what we're doing now and employ and train these individuals and expand it to what I just described 2 minutes ago? In 6 or 9 months, this is a real on-the-job training for these targeted demographics. In 6 to 9 months, this will show if it's truly, if this is the type of work they want to do. And then when they move into a pre-apprentice to an apprentice is what you guys passed anyways, as a two-prong approach. Hopefully they'll be employed in that particular market. So that's the reason I'm here to support this particular bill to expand the targeted population. Again, it's targeted only for the people that are in need. The unemployed, as we all know from the pandemic, over 20,000 of those guys out there, plus the disabled from DISIT that they manage and handle, and the sheltered individual, the TANF and the able bodies that are now part of the 2020 federal regulations that they got to do 20 hours a week of on-the-job training to maintain their program benefits. So that's all. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully that this is one of the vehicles we can use that with the limited government resources that these individuals can have access to help this government in either services or facilities maintenance or any type of trade that they've learned to enhance their employment opportunity down the line. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Camacho, for your testimony and taking the time to be here today. So now I'd like to open the floor to Michelle Perez from DISIT for her testimony.
Hi, thank you, senators. This is Phyllis Leongro, and as you said, Michelle's with me, the deputy director. So when we read the bill number 3536, section 2, subsection 5217, line 17, it states, as a condition of the award of the contract, the contractor must certify that the labor on the project will be performed by disability persons. Individuals except the supervisory personnel do not have to have a disabled, right? Or has to have a handicap. So anyway, our question is, who is the one that does the certification for the nonprofit? And what is their criteria for a certification? And if there's more than one that's applying for it, then how does that nonprofit get chosen?
Right, that's a very good question. If it's non-competitive, right, there's no competition and there's multiple people going for it. And so what this bill does, the way it's worded, as I'm looking at it, it opens it up to not just persons with disabilities, but organizations that don't have persons with disabilities. So that is perhaps a question. I don't know, maybe Attorney Brown, if you have any insight on how this is interpreted, the wording.
Well, it was that way when it was written. You know, that's part of the original statute, and that's always, a lot of people have asked that same question. I'm so glad DISIT is here asking that question, because what I have been told by several people from various agencies is that, well, DISIT has a certification process for disabled people. They can certify somebody as disabled. And I've never known anybody at DISIT to ask the question. So let me ask you back, do you certify disabled people?
No, we don't. So that's why we're asking the question, because, you know, this is where we actually get, we even have behavioral emailing us regarding this question. And there's nothing in the law that states that we're the ones that certify for this.
Well, that's a glitch in the law.
So we need, yeah, that needs to be addressed.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, Senator. Also to tap onto that, Attorney Brown had mentioned with regards, it's a procurement law, correct? And so we have had in the past few years, back in 2019 and 2020, we've had inquiries with regards to government agencies turning in I'm sorry, what's it's called? Sole source payment requests to GSA with regards to nonprofit organizations, and it's been rejected by GSA back, and then the reason was being that DISID needed to certify that these contractors or service providers have people with disabilities to provide the service. And that's where the director had basically mentioned that nothing in the law states, and we can't find it, that states that DISID needs to certify the nonprofit agencies in order for them to be provided with the sole source payment and to get that, to be paid for that service. So that is something in the law, I guess, that needs to be readdressed with regards to that. So it's kind of like, we're in a dilemma. They're saying DISID needs to certify, but DISID, we don't certify people with individuals. We can't certify that they have a disability. Only a medical doctor can certify that they have a disability. And on top of that, based on what how we're reading it and the law, it says the contractor certifies, which means the contractor is the person providing the service. So that's how we are seeing it on DISID side.
And that's the most practical way to look at it. Certifying there is just the contractor is making a representation that this person is disabled, and that person is not disabled. It's on, it's a ping on the contractor, not on the disabled.
Correct, Attorney.
Yes.
Correct, Attorney Brown. And on top of that, it has to be the person, the individual, to self-identify if they have a disability. So that's also, in part the individuals, it's on him, if him or her, they want to decide to state that they have a disability. So that in itself would be something that has to be done with the employer and the employee, and not just
self.
I think your expertise at this would be very handy in helping to provide some clarity to that thing that's been a puzzle since I became aware of this law years ago. So that can also be handled by regulations, because the law says you have to certify it, but it doesn't tell you what that certification is. That's where regulation can be adopted by people who are dealing with this, who write these regulations for the, that's a whole nother story. Writing the procurement regulations.
Could I ask a question then?
Sorry, hold on, Mr. Camacho. I just want to make sure DISID is given the amount of time. Did you have any other testimony that you wanted to provide? Okay,
no, ma'am. I think we're good.
Yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, as far as questions, I would like to actually first allow the senators, and if you have any questions, if you can put it in the chat, we can bring it up as well. So Speaker Talahi, if you have any questions for the panel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if the panel could just please clarify, perhaps Attorney Brown. At first, I thought you said that this provision, when it says a contract may be awarded without competition, should only apply to those types of procurement that already are without competition, such as sole source or emergency procurement. But when I read your testimony and the regulations that it affects, it looks like it will apply to all IFBs, RFPs, all procurement. And so then I read it to be what I thought it said was that they will win the competition if they meet these qualifications, that they will feed out all other competition. And so is that the correct interpretation?
Yes. I mean, if I could speak to that.
Yes.
It's similar to the Section 8 provisions in the federal law. If you have a hub zone, well, that's not a perfect example, but disabled veterans business, and there is a contract being let by somebody to build something or provide a particular service or something like that, and they bid on it, they don't have to bid on it. Even if it is an IFB, even if it is an RFP, they can acquire that without competition, because as to them, they have basically it's a right of first refusal to take the contract. Yeah, so that's what it means. And I think you had the right idea.
All right, so if it's IFB, that means even if they're not the lowest, that they will get the contract? No, there's no limit on that?
That's right. If they're providing these services, that they meet all the rest of the nonprofit criteria, it's not a low bid at that point, because you give it to the nonprofit. And that's the same way Section 8. Section 8 comes in and demands the contract. They get it.
Right. Okay.
A certain amount of their contract dollars. The federal government sets aside 23% of all money spent on procurement for these Section 8 facilities. Gives them a good crack at it. We don't have that kind of arrangement. We're not big enough, I don't think. But
well, I have heard of companies that are, they have one section that is a nonprofit, and then, so that they can meet this criteria. And so let me ask you a couple more questions. The certification question by Dicit is an excellent one, I think should be addressed. And what about if, so now that we are adding the same preference, if you will, for individuals receiving training in a pre-apprenticeship program, who wins between the two of them?
Right. What do you do when there's competition between two nonprofits? And I think that then that would go to a competition between them.
Okay. Has that ever occurred to anyone's knowledge on the panel?
I really have never seen I've heard complaints about it, but I've never been up close and personal to, there are not enough of these out there. Because, one of the things that confused me a little bit, since you raised it about hiring people receiving training in a procurement program, you don't get a solicitation for some one person to be an employee of the government. If this is if you're a contractor and you may be the person receiving training, and if you can meet the requirements of a solicitation, for instance, just to take care of a park, you're going to take, put out a contract to take care of this park, keep the toilets clean, and that sort of thing. If you're engaged in one of those services, you can take part in that bidding, and the contract will be yours. As you said, it's a winner take all for the nonprofit. But you can't, just because you're disabled, go demand work from an agency under a contract that doesn't exist.
Sure.
You want to work for them, you go through the civil service.
All right. Okay, but so between two companies that might have persons who are disabled, meeting this criteria, we don't know who wins between the two. You're saying I guess they're going to compete. It's not very clear. And then between a company with disabled persons, a nonprofit, and a nonprofit with pre-apprenticeship programs, it's not clear either who's going to.
They're all in that one category. Yeah, I have not seen it personally, but in the federal realm, where there's an awful lot of Section 8 going on, Section 8 people they're entitled to the set aside, but if there's 2 or 3 of them bidding on it, they have to amongst themselves have competition. And this is a nonprofit doesn't have competition from the competitive world, but from the world of nonprofit people, there is
Sure.
competition.
Okay, great. And then my final question is, I like your suggestions for additions regarding responsible, responsive, and all of that. But so my other question is, so when it was talking about employing sheltered or disabled workers, it says the contractor must certify that labor on the project will be performed by disabled persons or individuals, except for supervisory personnel. I read that to say all of the persons all the labor on the project. But when you look at the language that's being added for the pre-apprenticeship program, it says certify that individuals are receiving training in a pre-apprenticeship program. It's not clear whether all or just some of the people on the project meet this category. And I'm not even sure about that for the disabled category. Does anybody know? I mean, is this intended that all of the people on all of the labor on the project meet this criteria, or could it be just one person and you qualify for this non-competition clause?
Well, it's got to be performed by persons with disabilities or persons engaged in this pre-apprenticeship. So the work can't be performed by somebody else.
Okay, so you're reading it to be all labor, all of the labor on the project, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear. I think we could make it clearer as well in the
Yeah,
language.
that's when I start changing the existing law, I'm hesitant to go too damn deeply into those things. And but that's the way it came. That's the way we've had it. I don't think the jurisprudence has been developed around it, though.
I just want, we don't have GSA here. I would like to know what is their instance of this type of, occurrence, and if they've had any of this type of questions come up. But I see Mr. Camacho was nodding his head in agreement, so he intends as well that that all of the labor on the project, if we're going to meet this exemption, is going to be performed by those types of persons. All right, thank you all, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker Talahi. Senator Taitigui, do you have any questions for the panel today?
Tijusmasi, Madam Chair, for the opportunity, and thank you everyone who's here to testify. Yeah, that was one of my big concerns. In fact, Madam Chair, I reached out to GSA a couple of weeks ago and met with them along with, I forget his name, their attorney, I think. Kono, yeah, Robert Kono. And, I talked to them about actually both bills. Sorry, I had to go to a funeral and cut out on the other bill that was there, but, I have no issues with the other bill. It's plain and simple. And, but this bill, yeah, it's somewhat, confusing, who can do what. And I even called Carlos Camacho, since I know him very well, to try and get his take on what this bill really means. It is quite confusing, on who gets what. Thank you, Dissett, for bringing that particular question up. I had a concern about that as well. Who does certify? And that really makes a big difference in this whole thing. So when I did talk to GSA though about this particular bill, they were kind of giving me the example of a nonprofit organization availing of procurement exemptions, and like a janitorial service, one particular one they were mentioning, and how there is no competition at all. They come up, and it's up to that agency to decide who they want. So based on my understanding is if it is in competition, two individuals coming to that agency, it's actually up to the agency to choose who they want. It's even though two of the same kind of criteria that they have, the same amount of people that employed that are with disabilities, it leads up to the agency to decide, on that, according to GSA. GSA says at times they find unqualified applicants quite a bit because they do oversee. And then I did ask Claudia, I said, you do oversee all these procurements that go on through all the agencies, and they say absolutely. So that was comforting to know that GSA does review all these applicants and going through for procurement. So that's good too as well. Exemption not applicable to supervisory positions. Okay, exemption not applicable to supervisor. I don't remember what that one meant, but I also asked GSA, you know, to prepare to come to this public hearing to answer a lot of questions, but I guess they're quite busy there where they're at. But you know, Attorney Brown, I tell you, just looking at you exhausts me. You know, I get exhausted just looking at you. I mean, we have many conversations, and this whole testimony that you brought forward regarding something that happened in the 33rd Guam legislature is quite interesting. I didn't realize that until reviewing just now your testimony, and take those in consideration. But you know, like this, Madam Chair, really don't have any questions. Just wanted to make some comments with regards to that and my conversation with GSA. I just, again, wish they were here. Maybe, I mean, this bill should have some more insight, maybe a round table, and have GSA at the table. It might be very helpful to move forward with this legislation. I mean, let's do it right, and let's fix all the kinks, especially DISIT had some good questions here, and nobody seems to be able to answer that. So it does look like we need a round table here, and let's cover those angles that are not clear for everyone to understand. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity and for allowing me to make comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Taitakwi, and for providing the insight from GSA. Yeah, so I don't know if DISIT, have you had an opportunity to take a look at Attorney Brown's testimony? So maybe before, maybe we can, have a follow-up meeting regarding this bill.
Yes.
And you can take a look at that and see if that satisfies some of the concerns that you might have had. But also you had another point that you wanted to bring up?
So just so you know that a couple years ago, our federal grantor, and I'm actually reading out an email, okay? So the federal grantor informed us that at the time of the nonprofit cost of services were far above the other competitors' price, and therefore they disagreed to be awarded the nonprofit entity. And that's what our federal grantor said to us. So just so you know, that's what happened to us in 2019. Yeah, and so you know that just because with the nonprofit, they're talking about that there's profit organizations that have people with disabilities too, so they could see that they also should have that same opportunity to apply or to put in their application to get whatever contracts that are out there from GSA.
Okay, so even if, so what you're saying about hearing correctly, even if, let's say, a nonprofit gets the bid or the contract, they may not get even the federal dollars if it's a federal.
Yes, ma'am, correct.
So that needs to be addressed, perhaps.
So what happened? Yeah, so what happened was a nonprofit, and I believe Speaker Terlahi already said this. It was a question for him, and I was nodding my head. So a nonprofit, I'm just making up a number. They put in for the bid of 40,000, and then the other profit just put 10. Well, we're still getting the service, but according to the law, we would have to go with the nonprofit, right? So that's why we ran into this problem with the grantor, right? Wait a minute, the service is still being provided, and you have to go with this nonprofit. So that's the issue that we ran into.
A lot of people get mixed up, if I can just step in and address this. The difference between federal grant money and local money. This federal grant money comes with federal strings. Mm-hmm. And so they may have their own rules that required that. Under our rules, it wouldn't have been that way.
Yeah.
But we're spending our money. We don't have money to spend. We're always spending federal money.
Thank you, sir.
Right, so
we definitely want to, like you said, if there's a time that you want us to meet and we can, because we definitely want to add written testimony to this. We didn't prepare one for today. We apologize, but we definitely will do that. And if you ask us to meet you at your office or Senator San Augustine and speaker, just let us know. And, you know, we definitely want to go into the specifics about what Attorney Brown put in.
Okay, great. Thank you. Attorney Brown, if you can talk about, so I know you added the word responsible nonprofit, and I'm just wondering if, how would that look like in implementation of this? So if we adopt, let's say, all the changes that you suggested, how would that look? What's the process for determining that? For nonprofits that don't have competition, so to speak.
All contracts have to be given to responsible contractors. They have to be determined to be responsible at the time they get the award. If they are irresponsible after that time, then they can be determined non-responsible the next time around, but they're there. But responsibility is a finding that's required to get the award. Responsibility is defined in the regulations 3116, a number of different standards of responsibility. One of them is satisfactory performance and other like contracts. Another one is, do you have integrity to do what you say you're going to do? Do you have the finances? Do you have the materials? Do you have the facilities? Do you have everything you need? Do you have the right personnel that it takes to perform this service or provide that item of supply? And that's the judgment call by the contracting officer. And who can also just say, look, prove it. You say, yes, I do. Okay, go prove it. So that's what we mean by responsibility. That's a condition. Why would the government want to go out and contract to give money to somebody for something that they're not going to get back? They're not going to get what they're asking for. In fact, that's the litmus test of what is responsibility in this context of procurement. Responsibility answers the question, are you going to give me what I'm asking for? Are you capable of giving me what I'm asking for? And if you're not, then you're not responsible. You may be the nicest person. And you could have a brain surgeon be non-responsible if what you're asking for is heart surgery instead of brain surgery. So it's contextual.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. So I think, Michelle, you added a question to the chat and you wanted to just clarify. I believe this was answered already, but so in the bill, the question was, does a pre-apprenticeship program have to have individuals with disabilities in order to qualify for this? I know Speaker Talaya questioned this already, and the answer, what was the intent, I guess, Senator San Augustine or anybody in the panel? So was the intent to ensure that those in the pre-apprenticeship program are individuals with disabilities, or was it meant to open it up to other individuals?
Well, Madam Chair, Mr. Carlos had his hand up, and then I'll answer that.
Okay.
You can recognize Mr. Camacho.
Okay, Mr. Camacho.
Yeah, thank you very much. I apologize to try to ask a question earlier. First of all, I agree with all the speakers here that we got to tighten the belt. Yes, we don't want to make this a very loose program where one potential nonprofit organization will only qualify one party or one laborer, and 85% of the workforce is the non-qualified laborer. Whatever it takes to make sure that the targeted demographics, let it be the sheltered, let it be the disabled, let it be the pre-apprentice defined in 103-35, are the qualified laborer, right? That'll be great. Like I said, we can tighten that belt so that way nobody will skirt around the issue to say, okay, we met the 1% test and the 99 is all the other stuff. So that way the true intent is to help these guys get into employment, get into training, or get into top side of the workforce. Second, the other question I want to ask is, when I when I did sign up with PHRS, not government projects, getting workers from DISIT. This is my question, because you know when they brought up, they don't know how they're gonna. What they claim earlier is they can't claim that these guys are DISIT applicants, or what do you guys call disabled applicants. So Greg, if anybody can answer this question, how then did you get me all those applicants under DISIT that are certified by DISIT? But let me finish first. Let me finish first.
Oh,
right. So that's a vehicle that I got. I got a lot of applicants working for me under DISIT that met that definition. So earlier you said you're not sure how you're able to certify them, but for some reason they met the test and I was able to employ them under that federal program. So if someone can just clarify that, maybe that's the vehicle we can use, because you've already certified these individuals that work for me. And we got a few more that's going to work for me again. But anyways, that's just whatever route we took to get that on the private side of the world. I'm not sure why we can't do that for the government side of the world equation and that side of the street. So that's all I'm saying is, yeah, I agree to tighten the belt. I agree that we don't use this as a scapegoat. The full service should be for those targeted demographics, in combination of the disabled, combination of the sheltered, combination of, hopefully, if it agreed on the 103-35 targeted demographics. That's all I just wanted to say. And maybe someone can clarify how I was able to get those qualified DISIT employment, if they said they can't qualify.
Okay. Senator Perez, may I jump in because he's talking specifically about DISIT?
Okay, so the issue, I guess, is certification. I understand that earlier you testified that you are not the agency that certifies that. Is that correct?
So we're mixing up the questions. So there's three things. One, yes, DISIT does give names to PHRS. Now it's up to PHRS to decide who they're giving out to other companies and profits and someone who works for Mr. Camacho. So not everybody that goes to PHRS has a disability. So if they're giving names, if we're going to have to see the names that are being certified that goes to another company, then I guess so be it. We need to do it. But yes, so we do work with PHRS, and we do have clients that get the training from PHRS. So if PHRS decides to give 10 names that are not ours, that's up to PHRS.
Okay.
I think additionally, as far as the certification, which what Mr. Camacho had referred to, I stand by my statement that we do not certify disability. These individuals that come to DVR have to qualify in order to be provided the services. So as far as certifying, and it's a medical certification. So as far as certifying them to be a DVR client, there's no such thing as certifying a person to be a DVR client. They are a client who is availing to services for vocational rehabilitation. So that in lieu is how the client or consumer is coming from DVR and being provided training via PHRS or post-secondary education and so forth. So that's how it works. There is no certification that he is a DVR client. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Greg, you have your hand up if you want to add to the conversation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We're talking about two different programs. You're correct, Carlos. There are two different programs. The first one, as I stated in the testimony I read from our general manager, Jeff Vitskovitsky, that we receive from a DVR counselor a referral because we are a community rehabilitation provider. So that now we now have the responsibility to take that individualized plan of employment, which was approved by the counselor and the consumer, to then move forward into the field that they choose, even into the area or level of that occupation, whether it be entry level or whatever. And so we move into that area. Now, in that vein, the Micronesia Community Development Corporation is a recruited employer that we've got. We're implementing that. Now, for the first time ever, the potential of merging the programs also with the Department of Labor under the Eligible Training Provider Program is there. Under that is a different set of consumers. They're the unemployed, the unskilled, and those also that come through various target populations like those coming out of incarceration, probation, recovery programs, the homeless. So they go through that. And so we see that the nonprofit corporation that has the potential of hiring or training that eventually becomes hiring for all these individuals, because the end result is this: with all these programs, the end result is the training that eventually lands a job, whether it be entry level or it be 40 hours a week, and the various levels will be determined, of course, by the consumer and the employer themselves. So we work out that individualized plan of employment. We work that out. We cannot move on into another thing until that IPE specifies that, yes, like for instance, if they tell us that that consumer wants office work, we cannot give it over to a construction company or like MCDC because that's their specific area. Except, of course, Carlos, we did give you an office position because you had an office position open. So, but we never took a consumer and forced them into a job that they cannot or feel that they did not choose to, or is not approved by the IPE. So under the American Job Center, with the Eligible Training Provider Program, of which PHRS is an authorized provider under Department of Labor, for all those other training programs that we have, has nothing to do with being served as having a disability, because that's a different program. However, in the program that MCDC has is an offering that Living Lab, we see the opportunity of because it's the same period of time. If someone wants construction, and we've had 3 over the past year and a half, Carlos, that you were correct. These were individuals with disabilities that wanted construction, and their IPEs show that that's where they want. So that's why we placed them there. So now, as we move on and we obtain now additional eligible participants under the Department of Labor, we then move them into, again, because you're offering that Living Lab, that they can participate in the same program. The end result will still be there. They will still move in as is under the pre-apprenticeship, and they'll move in then into apprenticeship program. So yeah, we're talking about 2 different things. And a real quick note on the DVR, they're a very key component, and as pointed out by Attorney Brown, that certifying or moving into that area, how to do that about the whether we're going to have everybody in as employees or only those that are assigned to that type of thing. There's a lot of things that maybe needs to be worked out. But the biggest thing that we see is this one in with PHRS and just the collaborative efforts that can come out of this one is just tremendous. So we'll keep moving with what we can, and as we wait and see with the results of this. And by the way, we've been also offering our services to the Department of Public Health and Social Services for the TANF program and the JOBS program, because that's another part where we've been trying to offer them that they that under their programs, because they do have federal funds as well there. So we've been trying to also make our services available to them. But this is great, an opportunity for a summit or coming together. This, Madam Chair, would probably be it's the direction to go, because wow, we want to be a part of that one because we see this as a potential. The biggest thing that we see in this one is this. Out of the almost 300 companies that Pacific Human Resource Services has been networking over the last 4 years since we've been a part of the community rehabilitation program, provider program is that many companies are public spirited and they do want to do that, but they are so, we're working with all of them. No one has said no, but obviously like in construction, it took us a long time to convince the construction companies that all across the United States, there's no industry or field of which individuals with disabilities have been barred from. Even in construction, they can go into construction. Why? Because, when you put rebars together, even an individual sitting in a wheelchair can do it. And so now construction companies says, okay, if they're going to do that part, and because that's a part of the service that they pay able-bodied guys to do, but yet it's very tedious and it's very repetitive, repetitious. So it was pointed out by that because it's repetitious, their standard will be very high because they'll take that wire and turn it around and make sure it's all the way to the end, whereby it was a boring job, they won't, because they need to go and do something else, they won't do it completely. So that's what we're looking at, is opening up the field, the area that even construction that we'll be able to play. So we're encouraging MCDC to move in that area because we've already proven that the three individuals had interest to move into that. And by the way, they have accommodated them greatly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take too long, but thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Greg. Yeah, I do. It's very interesting what you're saying. And I feel like I need to sit down with you and just learn a little bit more about the whole context of what you're trying to provide. So I do appreciate that. So now we have Diane Calvo from Catholic Social Services, who has joined us here today, and she is here to provide testimony on Bill 35-36 as well. So welcome, Diane. And if you can unmute yourself, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Senators and Speaker Terlahi. My name is Diana Calvo. I'm Executive Director of Catholic Social Service. I am a nonprofit organization that is both a government of Guam contractor as well as an employer to individuals with disability. I'm still trying to understand the intent of Bill 3536 and discern whether the purpose is, to give nonprofit organizations preferential selection, if you will, because we have disadvantaged populations. So I'm still determining the impact to that. What I would like to speak on are on three different areas. And before I do that, I'd just like to preface that when I was a career government employee, pretty much for close to 30 years with Department of Public Health and Social Services. And over 20 years of that was working with Division of Public Welfare, public assistance programs primarily, where we will have the pool of all of your disadvantaged populations that are being identified in Bill 35-36. So these would be individuals receiving public aid, individuals who have been receiving public aid long-term, individuals who have varying degrees of severity of disabilities, and then even other subpopulations of groups that includes veterans, re-entry, individuals who are re-entering the community after incarceration or some kind of institutionalization. And in the work that we do with this pool of potential employees in government and private sector, we work with Department of Labor, Guam Community College, DVR, as well as private employers for the full range of job exploration, job development, skill training, on-the-job training, apprentice training. So all of what is really available in Guam in terms of resources to either educate people into professional white-collar occupations or to equip them with trade skills, all of which is to develop the marketability of the individual in the workforce. I think Guam has those resources and there's capabilities to do the instruction. The challenge, especially for us, has always been on access to the training and then access to employment services. Because there's a lot of people that go through training, and there's people that also invest their own personal monies attending trainings for short-term certifications, like at Guam Mariana's training. You know, they're individually motivated, and then they're forced, because if you are a TANF client or a SNAP client, to, you know, a condition of eligibility is to go and look for work opportunities and work placement in order to continue receiving benefits. So that, I think, you know, if we're providing incentives to government and to private sector to hire individuals, I think we need to look at it also from the perspective of the individual who is looking for work. And I think, you know, and I'll be a little bit more direct. You know, we've had on Guam a nonprofit who sold themselves as being an employer with individuals with disabilities and using that to gain points in order to, you know, elevate their ranking when they're looking for GovGuam or military service contracts, as well as for certain kinds of grants. And sometimes, you know, the populations that are being identified is really more of an incentive to the employer in order to get those points so that, you know, they could have a more successful award, which really defeats the purpose of being an employer of someone and offering a job to someone so they can become independent and self-reliant and be able to build their own life despite the limitations of their disabling condition. I don't know how that environment is for skill training and for employment services. I'm sure that was really affected with COVID and the lockdown and the loss of employment because of businesses closing and then eventually some of them shutting down. But I think, you know, in that whole training environment, there's also specific opportunities for non-traditional employment. So this is getting women into non-traditional jobs and vice versa, men into also non-traditional jobs like nursing. So, and it goes from the full range of obtaining a diploma or a GED, going to a 2-year program, including vocational training, or going to a 4-year training, or even going into the trades. So that's the one part of it. And it's still the same population group, and it's talking about pre-apprenticeship, but I think from my own experience, all of these are available already, even without any kind of law, just because GCC, as the state vocational agency, they get monies to offer those programs. How they implement it could be through subcontracts with private providers, including like Guam Trades Academy, you know, that kind of thing. The second part is, if we're looking at the nonprofit, and I was hearing discussion about, you know, procurement processes, it's competitive. There are certain safeguards that are put in place, or the assumption is that there are internal controls so that when someone is looking at a list of proposals or bid responses, and they're looking at the experience of the proposer, that they would also look at other factors that determine, one, the experience they have in providing that service, two, the skill sets and the training that's provided to enable individuals to do the job, and three, which is the more important part, are those individuals really on the job? Because I can tell you that if we're going into any kind of skilled trade, you need, depending on the person's disability, if they need to have someone with them, that's an additional expense, which is sometimes why the bid price or the proposal price might be higher as compared to a for-profit sector, because there's a lot of accommodations that would have to be made, and the accommodations would have to cost money. So it's also dependent on the kind of industry that a nonprofit is looking to go into in order to be a service contractor. Janitorial services are fairly, it's entry-level kind of work, and individuals that have moderate to even intermediate severity of physical disabilities, they would be able to still perform some functions in that kind of a work environment. But accommodations is the one that would really determine how well how efficient the work process, and then obviously the supervision and the overall performance of the employer when they're doing that kind of work. The concern I have is really protection and advocacy, so that individuals who are disadvantaged are not being used for the specific purpose of getting points to be given, to be given the contract. Earlier, I heard about sole source, and I will tell you that CSS also has been contracted by GovGuam as a sole source provider for certain components. And that's because in the work we're doing, we're the current GovGuam contractor, and in the work we're doing certain components of which the government is adding on to our current contract. So sole source procurement exists because there are ways that sole source procurement can be done, but it's not to say that sole source procurement can be given to a nonprofit for the explicit reason that they are employing disadvantaged individuals, especially persons with disabilities. I will not, as executive director, and certainly nonprofit livelihood is based on, getting contracts and grants and stuff like that. But for me, I will not choose to use my employees for that purpose, just so I can get points. I think we are strong enough in our experience and in the delivery and performance of our previous contracts to say that we're pretty competitive when we are putting in a response to a bid or to an RFP. And I think that, it should remain at that level of competitiveness, because we're showcasing also the kind of work that we do. And, whether profit also thinks that way, I don't know, because I've never had for-profit experience. I went from government and on the other side, reviewing bid responses and RFP responses, to being the one submitting in proposals and responding to bids. And that's my testimony is based on that experience. But the greater thing, particularly for us as a nonprofit, where our mission is to make sure that individuals who are highly disadvantaged are receiving assistance in the most dignified manner. And, there's a lot of organizations, including GovGuam, and there's processes involved to get individuals employed. And so, with GovGuam, that's the 700-hour program. I don't know if that's still available, but that provides on-the-job training, and then it does allow for the government to pick up that individual, because GovGuam's law does require still at least 2% of a department's workforce to be a person with a disability. And I'm not sure, I think there was some discussion about whether there would be something, some incentive to get for-profit to also consider, that kind. I know some employers do provide employment opportunities, but it it's also dependent on what the person is able to do. And if the individual is able to perform independently without supervision, that really is the goal, because then that says among all of our resources, we have assisted that individual to have their highest level of potential. And I think maybe for all of us here, that's probably all of our, that's the indirect goal, but that should also be the overall arching objective when we are working with any person that is disadvantaged. And so, to some extent, I do agree with providing some kind of incentive to employers to hire individuals with disabilities, and starting with a training program and all that. But labor also has that in place with apprenticeship programs, and sometimes, like for me, I can say I'm an apprentice site, but sometimes I can't engage in an apprentice program at this particular point in time because I can't guarantee that I'll be able to hire that person for a permanent position. And that's the other condition, related to apprenticeship programs. So there's a lot of details that go into all of these various training opportunities that would lead into employment. But the other part of it is employment services and retention services, because it's really easy for people to find a job, even without training. Some employers, as long as, for me, I will train. I've hired high school individuals, I've hired people out of college, I've hired people who have been released from incarceration. And we develop the person because I also pay for them to go to training, and to learn a skill. But it's really an investment, and it's top heavy because I have to make sure that my supervisors and my managers have the capacity to build in the extra time to work with these individuals as they're adjusting to the environment. There's a lot of things that go with getting a job. It's like, coming up with your routine, making sure you know what time you need to leave so you're in at work, 1 minute before 8 o'clock or whatever the case might be. And for a lot of people, that is new, because they're not being given those exposure in high school. And I think that there should be something here that introduces that concept into the high school, because there is no introduction to work, if you will. There's no homemaker services, homemaker education. There's no industrial arts, so that kind of dates me. But the clients we have don't even know how to sew the button on the shirt, which for all of us, we think that's really basic. It's not. They don't even know how to turn on the washing machine. That's the life skills is one thing. Work skills is another thing. We can't really teach people work skills if they don't even know life skills. And for the disadvantaged, particularly those that may have cognitive disabilities, we have to teach them life skills, and then it has to be graduated into work skills. And so, so that's the end. Thank you for the opportunity to offer, at least a little bit of insight coming from our environment here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Calvo. I really appreciate your insights, and we definitely would like to keep you hopefully in the loop, and maybe gain some more insight as we develop any kind of further policies, not just this bill. I think your insight would be very important in other areas. But yes, this is a very interesting discussion so far. I just want to, if there's anything else that Attorney Brown, if you wanted to provide any insight, additional insight.
Come on. Actually, I think I'm the one who's gained a lot of insight. I do have a little bit of a problem with understanding what it is that many of the potential contractors that are here today offer to the government. Yeah, I understand that many of you are engaged in your own training programs, but unless the government issues a contract for a trainer, there's nothing in this procurement law that I can see that would be of much. But to the extent that you do offer things that the government is seeking, things being supplies or services, then go for it. And I would participate in a roundtable. When you compare, John and Pingle used to say, why don't we just throw out the procurement law and adopt the federal regs? Well, if you looked at the federal regs on Section 8 programs, for instance, and their nonprofit advantages, they have given sole sources away to Alaska Native tribes. They just show up and get a contract. And so many of those businesses that do that are only 51% owned by the categorical person, whatever it is, Alaska Native, a woman, a veteran, and the rest aren't. Now, I don't want that to happen to what we're doing on Guam. So one of the things I want to make sure is that all of the work that is being performed by one of these categorical persons on Guam, because I know of some people who have nonprofit organizations and they manufacture stuff in the Philippines and send it over here and want to get a good contract for it because it was done by a nonprofit and the work was done by disabled people, but not disabled Guamanians. So there are a lot of questions in this. It's always been that way. As I said earlier, I've not seen that much controversy about it. And so, but there's no smoke, there's going to be no fire, putting it in reverse. And it won't get that kind of attention. But I've got a 3:00 appointment 10 minutes ago, and I'm going to have to bow out. But I hope to see you all around in the procurement classes and in the roundtable. And thank you.
So much. Really appreciate your presence and participation.
Okay,
Have
okay.
a good weekend. So Ms. Cabell, you had your hand up. Did you want to add to the conversation? You're muted now. Sorry, can't hear. Thank you.
I wanted to add that, a lot of it really starts, so if there is a government entity that is wanting to procure a service, or they're wanting to procure goods, then it really is dependent on what it is that that department wants and how they want to have it done. And they're the ones who prepare the specifications, and they prepare what are the requirements in order to establish the qualification of the offerer. And then what are some of the other conditions that they would want to see? For example, we are a service contractor. We don't make stuff. And so in the services, with certain services, I can say we've been providing services to GovGuam for serving persons with disability for over 30 years. And so in that 30 years, this is how our program design have evolved. And that is based on how I describe our organization. But at the same time, the government is saying, these are the people that you're going to provide services for. These are the kind of services or outcomes that is needed. Your workforce has to make sure that there are certain prerequisites, those are all directed by the government. And with each of those conditions, from my perspective, then I associate a line item cost. How much is that going to cost me to deliver, to make sure my staff are CPR first aid certified, that they go through some kind of training, you know? So if we're doing a service contract, obviously our highest cost is going to be manpower because we're needing people to do the work. If it's a purchase of some kind of commodity, you know, and the biggest, you know, the most recent, recent would be how Voc Rehab had the shelter and individuals that have really severe disabilities, they were paid piecemeal for the commodity that they produced. So they made ceramic stuff. And then they also operated a car wash. You know, that's also both a service industry, and then they are making things, and that's kind of in response to Attorney Brown, that the item that we said was made by a person with a disability was really made by a person with a disability. And then there's also training, you know, and so PHR does a lot of training. That's their specialty, is doing training and providing consultation and advice to companies like me who want to make sure that our domestic violence, we have a policy on sexual harassment or whatever the case might be. Those would be the kind of services that they're offering if the government wants to purchase that kind of service. So, you know, GovGuam still ends up being the one directing what it wants to buy, how does that product look, what is the outcome, and then, you know, the other side of it is you have an estimate on how much that budget is going to be, and then how much the legislature approves of that government's budget, that department's budget, because that drives how the service is going to be provided. And, you know, my understanding of where maybe Attorney Brown is saying is that, you know, service contracts like call centers, before call centers would be done in the jurisdiction. And then when it was outsourced overseas, a lot of the call centers for the banks and stuff like that were being outsourced in Pakistan and India and all of that because the cost was cheaper. And so, you know, now if we're trying to go back to America and all that, then those are part of the specifications, even on some of the federal bids. You know, are you purchasing American-made products? Are you using environmentally friendly items? You know, that kind of stuff. All of those adds to the cost of the proposal, because going green and living clean is more expensive than not. So we, you know, styrofoam cups is the cheapest, but if you're going to say, I'm going to be a contractor and we are trying to be eco-friendly, I have to say we are not buying styrofoam cups. We're either reusing, and we have mugs and stuff that we reuse. And so all of those for me factors into the cost of how much my proposal will be. So that's kind of like what goes into that process, you know. And I think for me, coming into nonprofit sector, a lot of the early work that even Paduta was doing was to say, you know, nonprofit, because nonprofit used to do a lot of government work for peanuts because they paid so low, you know. And now there's a lot of professional services that are being provided, and there's a lot of skilled services that are being provided. And so that cost then will be added on to the cost that the government will pay.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Calvo, for that. And keep you in the loop for other conversations. And I want to thank DISIT. I know they have a meeting to go to but thank you for your participation as well. So
Thank
at
you,
this
senators. Thank you.
So Senator Taitakwi, do you have any further questions? Nope.
Oh, no, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just waving to Michelle and those guys from DIS said goodbye and they're waving. Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think now we are ready to close. So I would like to offer the floor to Senator Joseph Augustine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank everyone for participating. This is a hearing. It almost turns like a round table, but that's okay. It's fine. But I look forward to integrating some of the recommendation of Mr. Brown, take a look at the testimony of everyone else. And I honestly believe everybody needs to be reminded of what this stands for, Department of Integrated Service for Individuals with Disability. They're not a certifying agency. They just, people are identified and certified as disabled. They go to them, then they find them how they can locate, send them to where they need to go to get a job or get help. But moving along, Madam Chair, thank you for hearing the bill. And then we'll see where we go from here. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much for the panel and my colleagues for being here today, and appreciate your time. Bill 3536 is duly heard. The time is now 3:16 p.m. We are still accepting testimonies until February 11th, so feel free to send any written testimonies, and we will continue to keep in touch with you in regards to any updates to the bill. Suzuis Masi, we are now adjourned. The Committee on Environment, Revenue and Taxation, Labor, Procurement, Statistics and Planning is now adjourned. Suzuis Masi, everybody, have a great weekend.
Thank you.